Okay, so this video is an analysis of Seamus Heaney's The Conway Stewart for the CAS Poetry Anthology, Study of Poetry 1900s to Present, Seamus Heaney and Robert Frost. And this is The Conway Stewart. Context that you need to know before you start your analysis. This poem is about his father's gift of a pen on the day of Heaney's departure for boarding school in Derry. It takes time for the pen to fill, giving us time to look together and away, and this seems for Heaney to be the beginning of knowledge and study. It may be seen as the fall or the perfection of art, whereby love and knowledge are held in balance, proving in Heaney's hands to be a means of redemption. So there's kind of a lot of religious kind of connotations there. Anyway, it's also really interesting that you can actually still get Conway Stewart pens to this day. And the theme that this probably most likely explores, that it could be asked on predominantly, would be childhood experiences, but there might be others out there. In terms of the title, the pen provides a means for achieving success in a new academic setting and maintaining contact with his family. He's able to write to them. The pen becomes a metaphor for poetry throughout the poem. We can see that poetry prepares us for severance, and yet it maintains attachment, just like the pen when he goes off to boarding school. It starts off with medium 14-carat nib. This medium does not just refer to the nib's width, but it also symbolises how the pen acts as a medium for the parents, for expressing the depth of their love that they have difficulty verbalising. The pen also deflects from the detachment that it marks. The parents seem to have difficulty in facing such emotional events as parting with their son on his departure for boarding school. So they buy him the pen as a symbol of that love instead. 14-carat nib, so we think carat, we think of gold, we think of diamonds, so it has connotations of being precious. Obviously that's to reflect the fact that this item is a precious object in terms of wealth. It voices the precious relationship between parent and child, reinforced through the precise detail of 3 gold bands. Even though he wrote this poem much later in life, it's as if he's looking back at this pen from 60 odd years ago. Then you've got the clip-on screw top, and you can see the excruciating detail that he's going to in describing all those rich adjectives help build a really vivid image in our minds, not only of the pen, but of how precious it is to him. Mottled barrel, a spatulate thin pump action lever. And again, rife with adjectives to help you visualise the pen. Then you've got pump action lever in that next stanza. And this has connotations of weaponry. So there's weapon imagery of a shotgun, emphasising the power of the pen and exactly what it is capable of. So the shopkeeper is demonstrating this, and then the nib is uncapped, and we can see that uncapped becomes a symbol of Heaney being uncapped, this young schoolboy exposed or plunged into a strange new element which he will be expected to assimilate with. So he's going to have to get used to going to boarding school, in other words. So lots of metaphorical imagery and figurative language throughout the poem, treating it to its first deep snorkel. So just as Heaney is gifted the pen is gifted the ink, and it's personified, treating it to its first deep snorkel. So swimming imagery, we can see that this is a new experience for young Heaney, as shown through the adjectives first and newly, or the adverb newly even, to describe how it's opened. This is obviously incredibly important because the pen is personified to metaphorically point out how it is an essential tool for a schoolboy, but also metaphorically a fantastic tool for keeping in touch with his parents as well. Snorkel and bottle, there's a really loose rhyme there. Then you have guttery, snottery, and you've got onomatopoeic words that mimic the sucking sound of the pen as it drinks its fill of ink. The ink is described as being collected at the end of the pen, and guttery and snottery refer to the texture of when it gathers there before the ink actually goes up the little spout. This is untidy and unpredictable. in sound and shape and texture, and it creates this really vivid image. In the same way that I suppose Heaney's life now, going to boarding school, could be unpredictable. Letting it rest then at an angle. You've got the alliterative at an angle, and then you've also got the consonants, the repeated T sounds throughout this sentence, and the G sounds, letting angle ingest. So alliteration and consonants, again mimicking the sucking sound of the pen drinking its fill of the ink. Again, the personification of the pen drinking the ink highlights its importance through adding a human quality to it, and we can see how much significance Heaney imbues this gift that his parents gave him and how much he appreciates it with that meticulous detail. Penultimate stanza, giving us time to look together and away from our parting due that evening. So you've got us and our, so you've got the collective pronouns there. Giving us time, obviously time spent together emotionally, together and away. You've got the contradictory adverbs juxtaposed. We can see that this is a pivotal yet difficult emotional moment for them. And that's shown through the alliteration of to look together, the t sounds. It's a delicate emotional position. They have difficulty expressing or acknowledging the fact that young Heaney will be departing for boarding school, and there is a strong sense of the absence of dialogue, reflecting that this is a difficult time together and away. They're struggling to communicate how emotionally bereft they will feel after his departure, but also a sense of pride. It's bittersweet. And this is replaced instead by the giving of the pen as their gesture to show just how much they love him. There's a really strong sense of family connection. Then we've got from our parting due that evening to my long hand, and it's really interesting that there's a stanza break there that he's deliberately positioned the our versus the my, the collective pronouns separated by the stanzas, emphasising the emotional trauma of their separation. That stanza ends with our, and then the next one begins with my. He's now alone. So the final stanzas depict the imminent opening of a breach in the parent-child relationship, signalled grammatically when stanza 5 becomes the plural possessive our and us are suspended and replaced by the singular my and them, showing his isolation. The fact that we have dear in between my and them as well is also integral. We can see just how alone Heaney really feels. It's visualised on the page. The dear, the single word line, stresses his emotional connection to his parents, and there is a deference to the emotional event and how traumatic it is, how it's a defining moment in his childhood. Parting at the age of 11, foreshadowing the parting caused by death much later. The pen presents an attachment to family, even when he's detached from them physically in being at boarding school. And this is both then and now. The writing, we can see, provides opportunity for Heaney to reconnect his parents after their death, for example, through the medium of this poem. In 2010, this is when this poem was published, but yet his father died in 1986 and his mother in 1984, so he's writing retrospectively as an adult about an event in his childhood to show the significance for him as a poet, and how through writing this poem, by discussing his childhood and how much his parents loved him and how he understands this and how it was a difficult time, he's able to reconnect with them even after they've passed away. And you've got them the next day. The fact that this young, eager Heaney can't wait to write to his parents even after he's only left them one day. The first thing he does upon getting to boarding school is to write write a letter to them. So you can see that there's a connection to family. The pen acts as a means to communicate Heaney's emotions and feelings to them. It's also, however, a means of achieving success in his new sphere, and he wants to draw deference to the fact that his parents are partially responsible for that. They gave him the tool for which he would use for many years to come. The act of writing is a continuation of a relationship which is offered as a way of softening the loss of leaving your parents and being in this new world of boarding school, and then also the loss of them actually dying many years later. So the first function for the letter is now poignant and confirms that Heaney is alone to them next day, and that them lets us know that he is isolated from his family. Commentary in terms of structure, this is written in tercets, so you've got the 3 line stanzas, and they have unusually short lines. It is written in free verse with lines of varying length between 1 and 10 syllables. There is emphasis on the stressed monosyllabic dear. The whole piece is a single sentence, and there's enjambment throughout, emphasising the singularity of the experience for a small child. It was a significant or poignant moment in Heaney's childhood. The 4 tercets refer to the purchasing of the pen, so the first 4, its maintenance in excruciating detail, and then the last 2 tercets, or the final 6 lines, reflect a much deeper emotional plane. So you've got these 4, and then you've got these 2. Heaney actually, quoting Heaney, said that the day I entered St Columb's College, my parents bought me a Conway Stewart pen. It was a special afternoon, of course. We were going to be parting that evening. They were aware of it. I was aware of it. Nothing much was said about it. And again, that shows us what Heaney really has conveyed in some of his other poems, that his father, and in this case his mother as well, are quite taciturn people who don't speak much. They have trouble conveying their emotions, as we saw in The Harvest Bow. So instead, they show their emotions through their actions instead.